Hello, in this video I want to talk about codependency. It's a relationship which is controlled or manipulated by another person. There's an excessive reliance on other people for approval or sense of identity. Hello and welcome to the Divorce Sanctuary. My name is Elizabeth Goddard. I'm the author of Finding Lily and the A to Z of emotional abuse. On this channel, I talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing from the emotional abuser. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back and thank you. And thank you so much to all my new subscribers over the last few weeks. It's just been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for your support. So codependency is a relationship which is controlled or manipulated by another person, with an excessive reliance on other people for approval and sense of identity. The emotionally abusive or toxic person manufactures their actions. The intention was to create desire, jealousy, dependence, addiction, and anxiety. You may not have entered into the relationship feeling codependent, but you will have come out of it feeling that way or behaving that way. You made sacrifices for your partner's happiness. Perhaps you are only just realizing that now. And they did this very slowly, gaining your trust, breaking down your boundaries. They created the person they believed that you were looking for, putting on a mask and playing that role. They created a fake future with you. They used tactics like triangulation to create jealousy, making them look popular and wanted. And they then started to control your life. As children, we are codependent. We need our parents and caregivers to provide for our needs. And you may have experienced codependency if a parent was overprotective or didn't allow you healthy boundaries or the room to grow and mature. Coming out of this type of toxic relationship, when it ends, you're lost and you're lonely. You have no one to talk to. No one seems to understand what you have been through. Unless anyone has experienced this level of trauma bonding, they will never know what it's like. The emotional roller coaster that takes you on a journey where you're learning what you thought was reality actually wasn't. You might have been aware on some level that things weren't as they seemed, but you are now discovering the extent. And you have moments of absolute clarity and the dots come together. And this might take years. When I wrote my book, Finding Lily, it was during that writing process I saw the extent of the manipulation and lies. I was aware, but I had moments of, that's why. Which made it easier when it happened again for me to connect the dots. It was still very, very painful, but I'd already been through the process. And what actually happened when I was writing the book was I sat on the beach and it just poured out of me. For years I'd not looked in that box and the words just flowed along with the memories of what had happened at the time around this event. I remember having an understanding that I couldn't have had at the time. And at the time and afterwards I was bombarded with attention. And I was being hoovered. It's mindfuckery. You're possibly recalling that sacrifices that you made for your partner's happiness, the things that you gave up, were part of the test to see how far you would go to protect them and the relationship, to prove how much you cared about it, how important they are or were to you. How they gained your trust and broke down your boundaries, how they manipulated you, extracting the information that they needed before they put on their mask and played the character that they believed you were looking for in a partner. And this is one of the reasons why you feel so awful coming out of the relationship. You don't know who you are and you've lost yourself and your self-worth. You might remember seeing some of the red flags as they very slowly broke down those boundaries, pushing against them just to see how far you would go and what they could get away with. They were so persuasive, you believed their answers. And very slowly they eroded your boundaries and you became dependent on them. You were enmeshed and your identity was eroded. You might remember wondering when it was your turn for some attention, or you might remember walking on eggshells, anticipating their mood or the words or actions of others that you had to manage. Perhaps they gaslit you, telling you that everyone thought that you're mad, bipolar, insecure, have low self-esteem, wonder why you're still together. Or maybe they made claims that had you questioning yourself. Maybe they manipulated your words, or they belittled you in front of others. And they may suggest other people have raised concerns about the way you behave, or the way they told them that you behaved. I remember finding emails from a dating website, and my intuition was screaming at me to follow him and find out where he really was. This story was changed. And of course, the emails were left out. The dating website was left out because those incriminated him. And I was portrayed as being crazy. They use words to devalue you and words to coerce you. They tell you you're crazy or you're paranoid when you start to question them and the things that they're doing. Their words are used as weapons to manipulate you and to create jealousy. And here you are out of the relationship now, wondering how you're going to cope. There's so many people that come out of these relationships with high positions of power in their jobs and can't believe how they fell for the lies. You are not alone. These relationships steal everything from us, but mostly our self-esteem. Your self-esteem was stripped away with words to now be non-existent, and you probably believe you are not worthy of anything. You might feel trapped, and that is exactly what this was used for, forcing you into a position that you are reliant on them for everything and easier to control. You might be feeling that your world has just collapsed around you and you are standing in the rubble. Take a deeper look. You could make the decision to use the bricks and the stones at your feet to rebuild your life. Your life representing your home or castle. You could rebuild it to what it was before and step back into it. Or you could take the blueprint, screw it up and rebuild your castle in any way you want. Words are really powerful and they were used to destroy you. Write out your story, look for the patterns and heal the wounds. One of my favourite films is The Holiday, not just because it was filmed where I lived at the time. One of the scenes was shot about 500 yards from my cottage. And a lot of the UK scenes were filmed around the area that I used to live. It's more to do with the fact that in The Holiday, Iris, after having her world collapse again, after hearing of Casper's engagement, does a house exchange and flies out to LA for Christmas. Totally out of her environment, she by chance comes across a Hollywood writer and befriends him. And it's during a meal he says that he's struggling to understand what she's doing, going out with him and it on a Saturday evening. And during the conversation she says, "Oh Arthur, I've been having counselling for 2 years and it's never been explained like that before. A girl should be the leading lady in her own life. Now is the time to become the architect of your life. You have been left standing in the rubble and the choice is yours. Do you throw away the plans and create your own blueprint? Or perhaps you take all the things that you liked about your castle or house and rebuild those parts that work, but remold the parts that don't. You're standing in the rubble. You have the materials at your feet. You've built your life before. The question is, what do you want it to look like?" John Welwood describes us as castles, born with hundreds of rooms, and as children we're happy to explore each room top to bottom. But over time people have said, "Don't do that, I don't like it. Don't say that, I don't like it. Don't behave in that way, it reminds me of." And one by one we close the door on ourselves. And in her book The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, Debbie Ford says you wake up one day and you realise you are a 2-bed semi. The abuser moved on. They've taken their wrecking ball and left your life and you in pieces. If you were to pick up the pieces now, what would you create? The same or something different? You were guided to that point of codependency, manipulated and coerced into that position. This is where you can start to take back some of your power, but you need to be aware of the hoovering attempts. Don't be surprised if they pop back up to find out what you're up to. As they've seen that you're changing, they may think that you have more to offer them. They may see that you've gained back your power. They may want to suck that back out of you. Going back to the holiday, Casper contacts Iris when just as she's boarding the plane, and he asks her if she'll have a look over some pages of a book he's writing. He's constantly in contact with her. It works for him, but it sucks for her. And when Iris is so busy making friends and meeting new people and hosting dinner parties and going out, she doesn't respond by reading these pages that he'd had couriered over. He turns up at her door. And then Iris realises that nothing has actually changed, and she gets something that she calls gumption. She steps back into the leading lady role of her life. Please start to take that role of your own life. Break the chains that are holding you to the relationship. Break the trauma bonds that keep you trapped, and find a pencil and a piece of paper and become an architect and start designing and creating your new home, your new house, your new castle. I hope you found the video helpful. If you'd like to find out more about working with me, you can visit my website. I'll put the links below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I will also put the links to my books, Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse, in the description box below. I'm sending you loads and loads and loads of love.